When you step outside into the natural domain, what can you hear? Can you hear the bird calls? How many different species do you hear? Is it fast or slow? Is it high or low pitched? Do you hear repetition? How do the sounds change? How many birds can you hear? These are all questions one could ponder on when being immersed in the ecosystem in which they find themselves. The sounds that you hear right now are of nightingales. Nightingales, Almegorhynchos, are a passeriform like most that are known for their distinct bird call. They have a high-pitched rhythmic song that can be distinguished by almost any passerby or creature in the area. While nightingales are not native to Nova Scotia, let alone North America, I think their call encompasses the spirit of the natural world that I would like to present to you. I feel that the essence of this song courses through and projects out of my being when I enter this beautiful natural realm. Point Pleasant Park, Amtucad, is a 75-hectare old-growth Acadian forest located in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Chibuktuk, that currently serves as a vast urban green space. This little ecosystem is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq First Nations, which I am a new settler of. We are all treaty people. When moving to Halifax in January 2021 from Ontario, I didn't have a vehicle, so I usually ventured as far as I could walk or commute. Point Pleasant gave me the first glimpse into the distinct Acadian flora and fauna, landscapes, and ecosystems of Nova Scotia. I have been going to Point Pleasant frequently ever since. It has been an escape from the stress of our artificial and structured obligations of being an active participant in human society. When I fall asleep on the rocks at Point Pleasant or listen to the crows call as I walk through the lush dark green foliage in the summer, or the bare trees in the winter, that is where I truly find myself. Beyond the borders of being a budding marine scientist, a queer woman of color with ADHD, and all these labels I am in constant reminder of when I navigate the structured human world. In nature, I move beyond my life and story and blend into being among many organisms, among the other vertebrates and invertebrates, plants and microbes, and I feel unbounded and free. Ecology is the study of ecosystems at different scales, from autoecology, population ecology, community ecology, landscape, ecosystems, macroecology to global ecology. I would like to share with you some ecological concepts I have learned through being in BIOL-2060 at Dalhousie University this spring, through the form of imagery and recordings of Point Pleasant throughout the seasons. To begin, succession is a process where communities reassemble themselves. Primary succession is the assembly of a community from bare rock and reestablishing a landscape after geological changes to the geographic region. Secondary succession is less destructive, and it is usually due to disturbances from natural disasters such as forest fires or insect outbreaks. In 2003, Point Pleasant Park was severely impacted by a Category 2 hurricane known as Hurricane Juan. Would this change the species composition of the trees? When communities reestablish themselves and species begin to populate the area, the ones that are able to colonize the area quickly are the first species to arrive. They are then followed by the more competitive species after several years, which start to dominate and outcompete them. Typically, colonists must depend on previous arrivals to establish themselves. This is because previous species facilitate soil development, making it suitable for subsequent species to populate the ecosystem. This change in composition occurs for many years until the ecosystem reaches its climax community, where all the species are in steady population numbers after succession. There are various hypotheses for the kind of climax that can occur as a result of secondary succession. Simple climax involves the domination of one individual at the climax, such as aspen. Polyclimax is contingent on local conditions of the ecosystem, where multiple species result in the endpoint of succession where climax is reached. This is due to soil nutrients, moisture, or things such as seed dispersal. There are also hypotheses that suggest that reaching a climax community for a forest is rather unpredictable, as seed dispersal by smaller animals can affect the trajectory of species composition during succession. Grimes' classification of plant life history strategies depicts species with different competitive abilities and tolerance for stressful conditions. Usually, more stress-tolerant species tend to be weaker competitors, and more competitive species tend to be less stress-tolerant to abiotic and biotic conditions. Moving beyond forests and using invertebrates as an example, the Chalamus barnacle species are able to withstand different areas of the rocky intertidal, but only inhabit the upper intertidal because they are usually outcompeted by Balanus in mid and lower ranges. While Balanus is the stronger competitor, it cannot tolerate stress as well as Chalamus. After Hurricane Juan, Point Pleasant lost 70% of its trees because it was originally an old-growth forest, and there were no younger trees to help slow the winds lower down in the canopy, and most of the trees were uprooted due to shallow soil. After Hurricane Juan, Point Pleasant underwent assistive reestablishment for almost 2 decades. The trees increased in richness and abundance. However, the forest still looked very different from what it looked like 20 years ago because the new trees are much younger, and the park is still at its mid-successional stage post-disturbance and has yet to reach its climax community. Understanding and statistically analyzing species after disturbances can provide information to policymakers and the municipality on how to best regulate the park after a natural disaster and how human activity can be altered to let the ecosystem reestablish itself. Moving along, I would like to zoom into a smaller scale of ecology known as autoecology, which involves the regulation of organisms' body based on the environment, climate, competition, and predation it faces. These fauna at Point Pleasant that I have encountered, along with the concepts in BIOL-2060, have given me an understanding of species adaptations to regulate their internal mechanisms so that they can survive in the ecosystem. For example, periwinkles are able to adapt to changing tide levels and exposure to sun, depending on what part of the rocky intertidal system they are located on. Darker blue periwinkles can trap water inside their shells to prevent moisture from escaping on a sunny day, while clinging to rock substrates when the tide is out. Also, different species can balance gaining or losing heat in different temperatures in different ways. Poikilotherms have varying body temperatures all the time. Homeotherms maintain a constant internal temperature. Ectotherms rely on external energy temperatures to regulate internal mechanisms. These golden star tunicates I found at Point Pleasant are ectotherms. Organisms can adjust their physiology and morphology in response to the environment. For example, light-reflective leaves are able to avoid too much sun in the desert heat. However, in colder climates with reduced levels of sunlight, trees may have darker foliage, like much of the flora at Point Pleasant, which allows leaves to absorb light while they can to increase heat. Two-eyed seeing is an indigenous teaching founded by Mi'kmaq elder Albert Marshall. This teaching incorporates indigenous and Western perspectives to be used in tandem with each other when making decisions related to policy or in the discovery of scientific findings, as well as in day-to-day life. This way of understanding is beneficial because properly looking at how multidimensional ecosystems are is very important, as indigenous knowledge is usually written out of Western methods of understanding concepts. I believe indigenous teachings like these could be integrated into the BIOL-2060 lecture and lab curriculum more comprehensively through guest lectures from educators of the Mi'kmaq First Nations. It will help students that are going into biology better understand these ways of doing science. Thank you for watching my presentation and listening to my story.